Well, this Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern is the iRacing IndyCar Challenge, which we're all looking forward to. And so is this man here, Santino Ferrucci. New color scheme, same overall team, but slightly different this year with Dale Coyne Racing, with Vassar and Sullivan. You're driving the number 18 Steelmaster car when we finally do get on track. But let's talk about this weekend first, Santino, because you are a bit of a sim racing and iRacing star. I'm sure you're excited about this weekend.
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, I don't know if I'd call myself a star at it, but I definitely do enjoy it. And I've built a couple of rigs, and no, I'm very much looking forward to getting back on track with some of my friends out there. And even though it's virtual, it doesn't replace reality. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Well, to that point, you know, and if I can be this liberal to say, you're one of the new generation of drivers. Supertex, IndyCar legend, motor racing legend, AJ Foyt, came out in recent days just to say he doesn't believe in like the sim generation, not the generation as far as you as people and as drivers, but he doesn't really see the correlation between what simulators offer, the actual real thing. What's your standpoint on that?
I mean, it's hard to say. I don't think a quick race car driver can necessarily be quick in the sim and vice versa, but you do have those one-off chances where you do get someone that comes out of a simulator and can get in a race car and turn a lap pretty fast. But for me, I use it to learn tracks more than anything. It's really a good tool to understand where tracks are going, because especially iRacing, they keep everything so updated with markers and references, is that when you get to the track, you kind of feel like you've been there before. And then you have modern sims like at Honda, for example, which are super high tech and super realistic, which help us with the setup of the car. So you have all different levels.
So what was, you're coming off your full rookie season in the NTT IndyCar Series. What was the most recent track that you can remember utilizing iRacing to help you that you'd never been to before? Was it Portland or something like that? Actually,
Gateway. I spent a lot of laps on Gateway because we didn't do any sim testing with Honda or Dallara. We kind of just went there, me not knowing the track. And it seemed to work pretty well. We were pretty competitive. So I felt like I got around that track well. And no, I mean, you have other tracks, for example, like Sonoma, which I didn't know, and I would have only known through iRacing, or Laguna Seca. And even Sebring, when you go to run for our winter tests, it's a really good baseline to get back into the rhythm.
So we've seen in recent weeks, NASCAR ran their, e-race, their sim race. IMSA did it with a Sebring reproduction, if you wish, last weekend. So now it's the NTT IndyCar Series turn this weekend. I think it's fair for you to let the viewers and the fans know that you guys are taking this seriously, right? It's a full field of IndyCar drivers.
Yeah, I competed in the IMSA one last weekend, and it was a ton of fun. I mean, just some of the drivers that were in there and some of the pros it was a pretty stacked field, and it was almost 50 cars deep. So I'm really looking forward to the IndyCar race. I think having all of us actual drivers and that have been in the sport for a while now, or it's just another outlet, but it'll be interesting for the viewers. I'm excited. I've started a Twitch to start streaming for my fans so they can kind of watch my in-car. And, also, you can personalize it to you. So you get a lot more control over what you can show in the virtual world versus the reality.
During this coronavirus period, which is very serious, I'm not smiling about that. I'm thinking about what I'm about to ask you. How many laps do you think you have turned in a sim with all of this downtime?
I don't want to know. I've been on my simulator every day for the last 2 weeks for no less than 3.5, 4 hours a day. So, wow. Yeah, I've actually started to wear out my shoes. I've been driving that much.
This is going to be a 6-week challenge, right? So IndyCar has a 6-week block of this. Who do you think, knowing the IndyCar field now like you do, who do you think is going to be the best iRacing IndyCar driver?
To be honest with you, I think Sage is really good. He spent a lot of time on the iRacing, has done a lot of development with them, and just is a overall, like from what I've seen, a good sim racer. And especially from what I saw on the IMSA weekend when he ran in the top 5. So he'll be probably the toughest of competition. And I'm a pretty average sim racer. I'm not super quick, but I'm not terribly slow either. So I'm more doing it because I think it'll be a lot of fun. And I personally enjoy racing wheel to wheel with these guys, even if it's virtual. So, and it's more fun because you can also talk to everybody. So there's a lot of banter going on during the race. So it's not something that you get in real life, unfortunately, but it like I said, virtual has its perks.
And where are you talking to us from now? Where will you do this race from? Are you in your home state of Connecticut?
Yeah, so as you can see, I'm sitting in my simulator, and I'm currently in a session right now practicing. I've just kind of paused what I was doing to talk to you, Leigh, and no, this is where you guys will be talking to me from. This is where I will be spending the next who knows how long in my house on my simulator, getting some use out of it. So we'll have some fun.
So we just got some news, meaning the NBC Sports crew. We just got some news that myself, Townsend Bell, and Paul Tracy will actually be calling the race. So we're thrilled because just like you guys for drivers, we're chomping at the bit to get going. You know, I had a busy beginning of the year calling Supercross and indoor track and field and the Rolex 24 at Daytona. But, you know, we were all, like you, we were all so geared up to do the season opener at St. Pete. So for us, like you guys, we'll go into race mode too. So we're going to be thrilled and looking forward to calling the action.
Oh, this is going to be exciting. I think you guys can definitely make a crazy show of us running around. So I'm really excited. I might tune into the broadcast myself while I'm racing just to hear it. By
the way, you said a little bit earlier that it doesn't necessarily blend. Not always. It doesn't necessarily blend that if you're a great racer on the track for real, doesn't mean that you're going to be an awesome sim racer. Our PT, Paul Tracy, is going to be doing a Legends race after the iRacing IndyCar Challenge. How do you think PT will do?
I'm not sure. I mean, I can't imagine that he would be slow, but we'll see how many faster pairs he uses, because I definitely see him maybe taking off a couple of front wings. But trust me, I'm excited to watch that.
So take us inside the sim. Take us inside the race. Not necessarily particularly the sim that you're sitting in, but when the viewers watch this iRacing IndyCar Challenge this weekend, what can we expect? By the way, I hear also that there's not going to be any adjustments allowed. You guys will all be racing on the same platform, the same car. You know, no engineering, no tweaking allowed. It's a level playing field.
Yeah, it's going to be so all the cars are what's called a fixed setup. So it's something developed by iRacing, and they're taking it very seriously, giving us something very competitive. And from there, the racing that you'll see is different. When we're in the car, you know, as drivers doing real life laps, we don't really make mistakes. You know, it's very subtle, like 1/10 here, you know, 0.5 there. When you're in iRacing, the margin for mistake is much bigger if you don't practice a lot and don't do it every day. So like you'll see, take myself for example, I mean, you can easily make a 0.5 second mistake in one turn, or you can make up a 0.5 second on somebody in another turn. You'll see a lot more carnage as well, in my opinion. I think there'll be a lot more close racing, a lot more passing, probably some more wrecks, unfortunately. But I think the racing overall, from a viewership standpoint, will look pretty awesome.
Well, we won't keep you much longer. I want to let you keep getting in some practice laps, but let's talk the season for real this year. You won't have Sebastian Bourdais around anymore as dad. You're actually driving the 18. First of all, how does that feel? Secondly, there's kind of no more black holes for you. You've done a full season of the NCT IndyCar Series, so you're launching into your sophomore year. How do you feel about that? Do you feel you're a better driver? Knowing what's ahead, are you doubly as confident? Like, where are you at for 2020?
I mean, it's definitely awesome to take over the Seal Master Honda in the 18 car. It's kind of weird when I see Sebastian, because like I'm in his uniform. That's what it feels like to me. Like I go up to him and I'm like, this feels really weird talking to Seb, and I'm in what I was used to looking at for colors. but we still get along great. He's still, you know, a mentor to me, and I still feel like I can ask him anything and he'll give me a straight answer. And no, I mean, moving into your sophomore season, I'm excited. I mean, I feel like there's a lot of things I didn't capitalize on last year, especially the 500. You know, a lot of mistakes that I made as a driver through qualifying and small mistakes during the race, feeling pressure from, you know, necessarily the longer distances and the pit stops, you know, just understanding how races play out further and, you know, just working with the team another year, having that continuity is a big thing. And, you know, it's also cool. My new teammate this year, Alex, he drives very similar to me. So we're no longer making 2 setups a weekend. We're pushing each other and we're pushing the team to make one car that we can both drive and both be competitive with. So I think for the team, it's slightly less stressful and everyone's working a lot more in unison. So I think this year, once we get going, it's going to be very interesting to see how we stack up against some of the bigger teams.
And what about that? Take us inside the coin with Vassar Sullivan team, because it's a very different dynamic. And you brought it up. Last year, you had kind of the warm embrace of Sebastian Bourdais saying, "Come here, kid, you know, I'll look after you, I'll help you, whatever you wanted to ask," I'm sure he answered most of the time. And you guys had established a really nice relationship. Now, you mentioned Alex Palou. You got this young guy who's going to be after you. You know that. And you're still a young guy. So how is this dynamic going to play out in your mind's eye?
I mean, it's definitely still different than the European mindset where your teammate's your biggest competitor. It's still, he's your biggest aid. I mean, especially for us being a 2-car team versus the likes of Andretti being a 5-car, you know, we really have to work together. We really have to push each other and push the team. And working on the Vassar Sullivan side of the program is definitely different. I work with Sully a lot more on, you know, kind of what the goals are in the team, what to achieve, how to push people, how to actually take over a leadership role, and, you know, how to fulfill Seb's shoes, or at least attempt to. And it's one of those things where for me, it's a big step in the learning curve, taking over that lead spot. But working with them, they've made it super smooth and seamless. And working with Jimmy Vassar as well, who has all that knowledge. I mean, I'm able to utilize him a lot, especially in testing and going into race strategy, to where, you know, back a few years ago, Olivier Bosson and our other engineer, Eric Cowden, and Jimmy Vassar were all on the same team working on the same car when they won the 500, even with Sully. So we kind of have that team back together, and we have that group of guys back together. So everybody knows each other. It's not like we're starting from scratch. We're starting from a standpoint where they left off with TK's 500 win, and we're trying to improve that now.
Mm-hmm. You excited?
Incredibly, because I really want to get going with the 500. So I hope sooner than later.
Tell me about this. Tell me, have you dreamed, and I'm asking this because you finished 4th, an agonizing 4 times last year. I mean, you got so close to getting that maiden podium. Have you dreamt about that, what that first IndyCar podium will be like?
Oh man, you know, it's so hard to believe that I sat and finished 4th. And even Gateway, all right, we led almost 100 laps. I mean, I still, that keeps me up at night, how I didn't end up with a trophy coming home with me. But I think, to be honest, I'll keep the same approach mentally as I did last year and take it race by race, and, you know, trying not to look too far ahead and keeping the car in one piece, because I really think it worked, especially for like the 500, where we started 21st or somewhere in that row of cars and we finished 7th. You know, I really felt like if I just was a little bit more aggressive in the middle part of the race, to where I was more just riding around, I really think we had a shot at a solid top 5. You know, I definitely think our car was capable, and knowing that going into this year's 500, it'll change my mindset of how I will run the race, but not how I will drive leading up to it.
This was something that myself, Townsend, Paul, our whole broadcast crew brought up many, many times, was your bankability, was your consistency. You were running at the finish in 15 of the 17 races. And I think you only tripped over those couple of hurdles right at the end of the season. So you had a remarkable year of consistency. Did you allow that to sink in? And was that something that Dale Coyne said, great job? Because for a rookie, to have that finishing ability is quite extraordinary.
No, it's definitely something that I think is not common. I mean, with Portland being an unfortunate electrical issue, and I made a weird mistake in Laguna. You know, if it wasn't for those two little things, we would have had a really stout laps completed record. And, you know, it's one of those things that I think was very important for my first season. I think it was important to show that, you know, as a rookie, that it is possible to complete that many laps, because it looks good not just on your resume, but it also you get the most experience. So laps is experience, and being able to finish all the races or most of the races, being able to go through all the pit stop cycles, being able to understand how every race plays out differently, it will help me much more coming into this year's races and what I'm looking forward to stop one versus stop two versus the final stop. And, you know, it just changes your mindset because you have an idea of what's coming. Whereas a lot of the rookies, some of the rookies didn't finish a lot of important races to where they'll be getting into the final stints of certain races and kind of still learning of how it's going to play out, you know. And I think crucially, it was super important at the 500, because when you come back as a sophomore, I now understand what's going to happen throughout the race. I know where it's a good time to push, where it's a good time to back off. And, you know, the strategy there is so unique and it's so in its own way that race, I feel like I really have a much better grasp on.
When you were racing in GP3 and GP2, which we had on NBC Sports, you were around some very talented drivers who have gone on to other things as well. But you were kind of around peers, similar age. Coming to IndyCar, you're racing with Scott Dixon, Tony Kanaan, Takuma Sato, Sebastian Bourdais, guys who are double your age, almost double your age. They've been around a long time. They've won the Indy 500. They've won championships, etc. Do you think you've matured? You're still 21, but do you think you've matured through that 1 year, that one full year?
I think you have to. I mean, when you're racing with those guys, they're not like in Europe and some of those drivers, when you're all the same age, you're all fighting for the same one seat. Those guys, they have their careers. No one's taking away 5 championships from Scott Dixon or 4 championships from Sebastian Bourdais. You know, those guys know their worth. They know that they're good. They have no need to not help you and fight you. You know, they're there as your aid. And, you know, that's really cool. That's one of the biggest differences. And being able to understand and change your mindset to work with them was a huge step throughout the year. But that's what the best part about having Seb was, because, you know, it was there to understand that your teammate's not your rival. Your teammate's your mentor. He's the guy that's going to help you get the most out of yourself and the most out of the team. So having that older grid with experience, in my opinion, I had a lot more fun. And I think the racing's a lot different because everyone's got so much experience and so much laps, and everyone there understands how to win a championship. So it's slightly less erratic at times, but on the other times, you get the opposite end of the coin where it can get a little crazy when you get people like Graham Rahal and Sebastian together, where both guys got big heads and big shoulders and they want to put their elbows out wide. It gets entertaining real quick. So whereas, you know, being a rookie, sometimes you got a little push to the side, but if you push back, they respected it. So we need to remind everybody that the iRacing IndyCar Challenge will be, of course, on iRacing.com. It will be streamed on IndyCar.com. It'll be on YouTube. It'll be on Facebook as well. Now, it's everywhere.
As you may or may not know, I think we may have told you in the past that our Paul Tracy got somewhat tongue-tied in between Santino and Ferrucci and had this hybrid of Santucci, which he now affectionately calls. And to be honest, we all call you that. We call you Santucci. Is that okay? Can we run with that?
I don't mind it. It's pretty trendy, to be honest with you. So, I mean, I can change my iRacing name if they'd let me.
There you go.
They just run one name, Santucci. Just like that. You go.
All right. Paul might ask for some royalties. But anyway, listen, 4 o'clock this Saturday, Eastern, of course, for, I think it's about a 90-minute race, isn't it? About an hour and a half, I think.
I think they just decided it's going to be about 90 minutes.
Yeah. All right. Well, we look forward to it. You look good in those Sealmaster colors, mate. So all the best. Santino Ferrucci from the Dale Coyne Vassar Sullivan organization, and he'll be part of the IndyCar iRacing Challenge this Saturday. And you'll hear from myself, PT, and Townsend. Look forward to it. See you then.
Take care, guys. Stay safe.
Hey, Motorsports fans, thanks for watching. Make sure you hit subscribe before you go for all the latest news and highlights across motorsports.